This podcast is about how to break negative thought loops. We all worry at times, but what should you do when your thoughts spiral out of control into a negative thought loop? Again, we all worry. It's a normal part of being human. But what happens when you can't get a worry out of your head? When it spirals out of control and leads to other worries that are even bigger and more concerning. We call this a negative thought loop or a negative thought pattern. So how do you know when you are in a negative thought loop and how do you get out of it? Okay, let's first look at the question. Am I in a negative thought loop? Sometimes it's hard to identify when you are in a negative thought spiral. When these worries seem so real, it's hard to identify that we're going into a downward spiral. Research suggests that our brains are conditioned to remember negative loops. They trap us into believing that everything is wrong with us or with the world. It can be very hard to sit back and identify that they are just thoughts, they are not truths. Okay, let's talk about common negative thought loops. The first thing to do is to learn more about different types of negative thought patterns. So you can do any of these. The first is catastrophizing. That's always thinking everything's a catastrophe, everything's the worst. Or you could go into black and white thinking. That's all or nothing. There are no shades of gray. Another trap is overgeneralization. An example could be a single event signals immense failure. I think when you're studying for law school, taking the LSAT, the law school admissions test, you learn about what's called deductive and inductive reasoning. That's maybe something good to read on this later on when you have some time. But deductive reasoning is where you can look at a pattern of maybe repeating of things, and you can draw a conclusion based off of that, versus inductive reasoning where you draw a generalization or a general conclusion or create a general rule based off of an isolated event. Best example would be there are three dogs. One is black, white, and another one's brown. So we can conclude that of these dogs, they are different colors. That would be deductive reasoning, where we see the three dogs and we conclude that these dogs are three different colors. No one dog is all three colors, for example, and also we can come to the conclusion that some dogs are one color, some dogs are another color. That would be deductive. Inductive would be we see one dog is brown, and we could then conclude, therefore, all dogs are brown. That's bad logic. So if one person gets too excited where they see one single event and they think that's a signal for immense failure, then that would be someone who overgeneralizes. Okay, another negative thought trap. Jumping to conclusions. That's making a negative interpretation even though there isn't any evidence to support it. Another is emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning, where you feel it, therefore it must be true. Another common negative thought trap is rejecting the positive. That's insisting positive experiences don't count in favor of the negative ones. Self-blame. That's assuming you are to blame for an event that has nothing to do with you. Unrealistic expectations. That's where someone expects perfection at all times. Another is negative self-talk. That is blaming and berating yourself. Another is negative rumination. That is picking one negative detail and allowing it to take focus over all the positive ones. Okay, so now let's examine how to change your thinking. Once you've identified these patterns in your thoughts, the next step is to attempt to stop the loop. There are a few things you can try. Sometimes one technique might work, but other times it might not, and you might need to try something else. The important thing is to keep trying. One thing you can do is try mindfulness. When we are in a negative thought loop, our minds aren't in the present. They are busy thinking about something that has happened already or may not happen in the future. Mindfulness helps us pay attention to our present moment and accept it without judgment. Research suggests that mindfulness can help us notice our negative thoughts earlier and attempt to remove ourselves from them. Mindfulness can come in the form of mindful meditation, but there are also many other ways you can be mindful. You can also enjoy mindful exercises such as yoga or even a walk where you notice how your body feels after the sensations or how your body feels and the sensations around you. The more we practice mindfulness, the better we get at recognizing our negative thinking, which can help stop us from getting caught up in negative thought loops. Another thing we can do is challenge your thoughts. Once you have recognized your negative thought pattern, try to challenge your thoughts. Is it the truth, or are you projecting catastrophic thoughts onto the issue? Or your thoughts influenced by something in your past? Are you blaming yourself unfairly for something? Try not to judge yourself for feeling these thoughts, as everyone does it occasionally. The important thing is to recognize they are unhelpful thoughts and try to move on. Okay? Give yourself a time limit. When you are worried about something, instead of trying to stop yourself from worrying, you could try to give yourself a time limit. Then when that time is up, either act on a potential solution or try to distract yourself with a pleasurable activity. Go for a walk, talk to a friend, or watch a movie. Okay, something else you can do? Talk to someone. If your negative thoughts are impeding your enjoyment of life, it might be time to talk to a trusted friend or a professional. The National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline you can contact them by dialing 988. Okay, references, journals.sagepub.com/DOI/ABS and the NIH, National Institute of Health. Okay, before I really let you go, I'd also like to discuss what negative thought loops are from a different perspective and why we might try to stop it. But let's take a look at this. Being stuck in a negative thought loop can take a toll on your mental health. It can cause you to lose sleep and may increase symptoms of anxiety and depression. Sometimes the more you try to will yourself to stop thinking, the stronger the negative thoughts become. Stopping the negative thought loop may not be easy, but it can be done. So, again, let's take a look again at the definition of what is a negative thought loop. A negative thought loop occurs when you think about something troubling or distressing over and over again and you can't let it go. It could be something you said or did that you deeply regret, or something that was said or done to you, or something future or past oriented. As you ruminate on what occurred, you feel the feelings related to it. This can lead to symptoms of anxiety and depression when you can't let go of the thoughts. Although some self-introspection is quite helpful and healthy, negative thought loops are not. This is because your brain can't easily distinguish between what is actually happening and what you are telling it is happening. When you focus on repetitive negative thoughts, you begin to judge yourself negatively as well. So, why try to stop it? Since you and I are thinking beings, negative thoughts will naturally occur. However, when you get stuck in a thought loop that you can't get out of, distressing feelings can increase and your mental health can suffer. You can have trouble sleeping and become easily agitated. It can even begin to change your worldview and sense of safety. When you are stuck in a negative thought loop, it can also impact your sense of self. Instead of your thoughts being about what happened, it can turn into being about what is inherently wrong with you, how you are not good enough, and what a horrible person you are. When this happens, the negative thought loop reinforces the negative self-beliefs, which can lead to unwanted behaviors. However, there are some things you can try to do to stop the negative thought loop. And one of them is write it down. Write the negative loop down on paper. The act of forming letters engages the logical side of your brain. This helps get you out of the imaginative side of your brain, where you can catastrophize a situation and make it much worse than the reality. Sometimes just writing it down is enough to stop the thought loop. If not, you can read over what you wrote and check it for accuracy. If it is not accurate, or if you can think of other ways to look at it, write those down as well. Writing down your negative thought loop can help you look at it more objectively. Okay? Feel your feelings. In order to stop a negative thought loop, you will need to feel the feelings associated with the thought. While it is normal to want to avoid uncomfortable feelings, you can't fully process them until you feel them. When you ignore the feelings that come up related to the thought loop can actually become stronger. There is nothing wrong with your feelings, and you can feel anything you need to feel. You can set aside a set amount of time every day where you spend 10 to 15 minutes feeling your feelings. This way you allow your feelings to be experienced so they can be processed. Once you process your feelings, your thought loop might stop. Okay, now let's talk about practice thought-stopping techniques. As you develop the habit of feeling the feelings related to your negative thought loop, you will want to practice thought-stopping techniques if the thought loop continues or comes up during other times of the day. This can be done in several different ways. You can engage in an activity that helps distract you from your thoughts. This can include exercising, reading a book, or doing crafts. You could repeat a mantra over and over again to help drown out your thoughts. A visualization technique such as picturing a stop sign and reminding yourself that you have to think of this tomorrow can also stop the negative thought loop. When you have a set time every day to feel your feelings and focus on your thoughts, it can make it easier to use thought-stopping techniques at other times. Okay? Self-soothe. Please accept your thoughts for what they are. A thought is just a thought, and you can have a thought without attaching to it or making it bigger than it needs to be. Allow your thoughts to be and practice self-soothing. Focus on your breathing while you let your thoughts come and go without judgment. Go for a walk. Talk to a friend. Take a bath or find something you can do that helps distract you from your thoughts. Be gentle and kind with yourself and with your thoughts. Use the emotional freedom technique to help you calm down and accept yourself no matter what your thoughts are. Okay, something else I want you to do is reframe. Reframe your thoughts to help you get out of the negative thought loop. To reframe your thoughts, check them for accuracy and consider other ways to think about it. If they are not very accurate or you are instead catastrophizing, change them to something more accurate. If they seem true, come up with another way to say it that is still accurate but also kind. For example, instead of saying, "I made a mistake because I'm stupid," change it and say instead, just say something like, "I made a mistake because I overlooked something and I can look at things more carefully going forward." You can also observe your thoughts as if you are a third party and they are not about you, and think of what you would say to this other person. Reframing your thoughts can help you accept the situation so you can let the thoughts go. Okay, practice gratitude. When you practice gratitude, you look for the good and the way things went well, instead of focusing on the negative. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes for your brain to search for the good. Thinking about what you are grateful for can help you feel better about things. Keep a gratitude journal and notice all of the things you are thankful for. If you get stuck in a negative thought loop, your thoughts will more naturally shift to the good things when you make gratitude a daily practice. When you find yourself stuck in a negative thought loop, you can try the above tips. If you continue to struggle with negative thought loops that are impacting your emotional well-being, therapy can help. With practice, you can learn to stop your negative thought loops so they do not take over your life. Citation, SAMHSA.gov, that's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Thank you for listening. Please consider subscribing.